So before going to the scheduling algorithms, we just understood that we need to maximize utilization and throughput. We already gone through it. Next, we need to minimize all delays in the system, whether it is response time, waiting time, or total turnaround time. So these all we studied in last lecture. Today we're gonna describe these algorithms in detail. So before that, we need to know that we are dealing with uniprocessor environment only. Uniprocessor environment only. That means we have only single CPU, right? And we have multiple processes. Let's say P1, P2, P3, Pn. And these all processes needs services from CPU. So we have only one single supply of CPU and multiple demands of CPU from the multiple processes. That's why we need to compensate this problem. To overcome this problem, we need some scheduling mechanism for CPU handover, right? Because in this scenario we need to give the control of CPU or switch the control of CPU among multiple processes available in the system like P1, P2, Pn, right? So whenever we have demand of CPU, multiple demands of CPU, but we are having only one CPU, that means we need to schedule our CPU for these processes, right? That's why scheduling algorithms comes into the play, right? Comes into the picture. So that's why we have multiple CPU scheduling algorithms. We have already discussed in last lecture. Let us copy it from there only. This is a very important design goal for this student. So we just copied it from the last slide. So whenever we are going to study CPU scheduling algorithms, we have two categories, right? One is non-preemptive scheduling algorithms and preemptive algorithms. In the non-preemptive, we have FCFS, first come first serve, first come first serve. Second, we have SJF, shortest job first, or in some textbook it is written as SJN, shortest job next. And third, we have priority scheduling, which comes under both category. It could be non-preemptive or it could be preemptive. Whatever the designing methodology of it OS designer have, it could be either non-preemptive or it could be preemptive. And in the category of preemptive type, we have SRT, shortest remaining time first. SRTA or SRTF, and second one we have round robin algo, or we can say it is time sharing. It is nothing more than time sharing, right? So the major category of CPU scheduling is non-preemptive and preemptive. In case of non-preemptive, you cannot, in case of non-preemptive, you cannot disturb any process running in CPU. Means if a process is running in the CPU, it cannot be disturbed or interrupted. And if the algorithm is such that it will not disturb any running process in the CPU, that means that particular scheduling algorithm comes under non-preemptive algo, right? And if the algorithms is allowed, if any algorithm is allowed to disturb or interrupt any running process in CPU, that means those algorithms falls under preemptive algorithm. Understood the difference, guys? So first we cover non-preemptive algorithms, right? So in non-preemptive algorithm, we have first one FCFS, first come first serve. It is the most commonly known algorithm in computer science. You already know that. First come first serve means whichever comes first will be served first, right? Means which process comes into the system earlier will get the chance of the control of CPU earlier, right? Means if any process comes first, that means that process will get CPU first, and after completing of that particular task process, then only the control of CPU goes to another process, right? So this algorithm is non-preemptive in nature. Means if any process is running in the CPU, you cannot alter or you cannot disturb that running process. You have to wait until and unless the CPU gets free, right? Right? Like in it will be managed by, it will be implemented by simple FIFO-Q. FIFO-Q. For example, if you are going to the bank and you have some tasks at the bank, then you will be getting any sequence number like token number. And if you are the first one, you will get the service first. And if you are the second one, you will get the service in the second turn. In the similar fashion, FCFS, from the banking concept, FCFS, the fundamental of FCFS comes from, and that means if a process comes first, it will be served first. It will get CPU first, right? Let's say if P1 is come first, P2 came after P1, P3 came after P2, P4 came after P3, and P5 came after P4. That means P1 will get first turn on CPU, P2 will get second turn, P3 will get third turn, P4 will get fourth turn, and in the fifth turn, P5 will get the control of that CPU we have, right? So here there is a problem in FCFS problem. What is that? If all the four processes are large or long processes, that means, and P5 is short process. sort process. That means P5 need to wait this much of time. Let's say if P1, P2, P3, P4 are having total time required for those are 2 hours. That means these process will complete in 2 hours, and P5 needs only 5 minutes of CPU. That means for completing its task in 5 minutes, it needs to wait first 2 hours. That's the problem with FIFO. So it's totally performance of FCFS is totally dependent on the process mix we are having. Process mix coming from system. Process mix coming from system means it will get best performance if all sort processes come first, and worst performance if all long processes come first. That means uh, in this scenario, worst case scenario, any sort process need to wait very long time. That means sort process will get into the starvation. So that's the problem with FCFS. So this is the theoretical part. Let's understand it by an example, numerical example. Let's say we have processes and CPU time, or it is also called CPU burst time. CPU burst time, right? Which is required for a process. Let's say we have P1, which needs, let's say it could be in seconds, it could be in milliseconds, it could be in nanoseconds, right? Let's say P1 required 31 seconds of CPU time for completing its task, right? In the similar fashion, P2 require CPU for 2 seconds and P3 require CPU for 4 seconds, right? This is the process mix which is in the system, and at this time arrival time is not given. We will consider it afterward, after this. Let's say we have not given any arrival time. That means we will assume that according to this manner the process come to the system. Means first P1 is came, second P2 came, and third P3 came. So to understand this, we need to build a Gantt chart for this, right? Gantt chart is nothing, it is a bar diagram according to time, which will show the total time taken by all the processes, right? So it is the best practice to create a Gantt chart first, then only calculate your waiting time and turnaround time, right? So in the question you will be given that this is the process scenario and you have to calculate average waiting time and average turnaround time for the system, right? So in this snapshot we have three processes. P1 came first according to given numbering. If arrival time is not given, if arrival time is given, you need to consider arrival time. It is a critical factor, right? So before going to arrival time numerical, we will first consider this one, right? So let's say time 0. At time 0, system is having process P1 only, so it needs to, according to FCFS, whichever process come first will get the CPU, right? So that means P1 will get the CPU, and how much time, for how long? For 31 seconds the CPU will be in control of P1. That means after 31 seconds it will release the CPU, and we can give CPU to another process, right? Okay, in the time domain, this is the time domain. After 31 second, we have two further processes in the system, P2 and P3. According to numbering, because here arrival time is not given, so we consider that P2 came first. So after P1, P2 will get chance to execute on the CPU. So P2 will take 2 seconds to complete. That means at 33, P2 will complete its task, right? And after P2, P3, P3 will come and take the control of CPU for how much second? 4 second. For 4 second. That means it will complete by 37th second, right? So this is a Gantt chart. If you created Gantt chart right proper way and in right manner, your numerical will be correct. Otherwise, maybe the chance you will create a wrong Gantt chart and you will uh, you will select wrong values of the timing. That means you will get the answers wrong, right? So it is the best practice to create Gantt chart first in the proper manner, right? Like we have Gantt chart for this snapshot of the processes is this one, right? So now calculate waiting time. Waiting time. So every every time waiting or the either it is waiting time, either it is turnaround time. You need to first calculate it for individual processes. So for P1, what is the waiting time? Waiting time is the time taken by a process to get CPU, right? So here in this case, it is the first process. That means waiting time for the process P1. See here. Let me change the color. See here, P1 got the CPU at time 0. That means waiting time for the P1 will be 0. Okay. Next for P2, for P2, P2 at which time stamp P2 got the CPU? It is 31. That means waiting time for the P2 will be 31, right? And for P3 it is 33. See the first time of every process means it is waiting for this much of time period. So first time P1 gets CPU, that means 0 time. P1 will be waiting time for P1 will be 0. For P2 it will be 31 because at 31st second it got the control of CPU, right? That's why it is written P31. And for P3 it is 33 because at 33 second it will get the control, it got the control of CPU, right? So for all the process, average waiting time will be calculated as P1 plus P2 plus P3, WT of all three upon 3, which will be equals to 0 plus 31 plus 33 upon 3, which will be equals to 64 by 3 equals to 21.3 seconds. That means total average waiting time in the system for every process in the system is considered as 21.3 seconds, right? Now calculate turnaround time, TAT. So for P1, you need to check when a process came and when it is completed. So when it is P1 is completed at 31, okay, and when it came to a system at time T0 minus 0, that means 31, right? See the Gantt chart properly. It is the end part of P1, so this is taken here, and beginning time of P1 it is taken here. So end time minus beginning time equals to turnaround time, right? For P2, what will be the turnaround time? Will be 33 ending time of P2 minus starting time of P1, 31. equals to 2 seconds. In 2 seconds, P2 has been completed from submission to termination, right? And for P3, it will be 37 minus 33 means 4 seconds. So average turnaround time for the system will be summation of P1 plus P2 plus P3 upon 3, because we are having three processes only, that's why. So it will be 31 plus 2 plus 4 upon 3, right? Okay, here is a mistake, because we are not having arrival time, so we consider it 0. Starting time 0 means at the time t0 all the processes are in the system, right? So it should be like that. Eraser. Now 33 minus 0, 37 minus 0. That means total turnaround time for P2 will be 33, and total turnaround time for P3 will be 37. So 33, 37. That means 101 by 3. The system average turnaround time for the system will be 33 seconds. So this is the case when we are not having the idea that when the process came. So we just assume that all the processes came in the same time, but P1 according to numbering we are giving the chance. Okay, so let's take another example where we are having arrival time for the processes. Let's take same example. We just 31 to 4 31 to 4. Now we are given with arrival time. Arrival time is the time when a process gets into the system, right? So here, let's say, process P2 came at time 0 and P1 came at time 1 and P3 came at second, right? So in this scenario, you need to first check which process came first. So you have arrival time given, so you need to consider it also, because it is a critical factor in this, right? So first make Gantt chart for the same. It is a time. Okay, so at time t0, if we see the snapshot, at time t0 only P2 is in the system. So what operating system do? It will give the control of CPU to the process P2, and for how much second? For 2 seconds, because it is non-preemptive. You cannot, once you given the control of CPU to any process, you cannot change it, right? Until unless this process complete its task. This process release this CPU after completion of its task, right? So that means it will complete by 2 seconds, right? Now see, make a time process. time t0 there is only p2. Time 1 and 2, and time 1 there is process p2 is already there, and 1 पे आपका p1 भी आ गया था, right? And for time 2 there are three process p1, p2 and p3. All processes came in between at time t2, right? So now see, you started a process p2 in the system, in the CPU, and you cannot change it. That means p2 will first complete its task, and when it completes its task, it is completing at time t2. That means in the system we have now two options, p1 and p3, because at 1 p1 already came, and at 2 p3 also came. That means we have two processes in the system, and we need to choose any one process. So according to arrival time, we consider p1 for processing, right? So OS selected p1 for giving control of the CPU because it arrived at the time t1, right? Understood? That's why p1 is getting chance of CPU, right? So p1 is getting chance for how much time? 31 second. P1 will complete its task by 31 second. Okay, that means it will complete it by 33 second, right? And at 33 second we have only one process remaining in the system, which is p3. So only p3 will get the chance. And for how much second? For 4 seconds. That means it needs process CPU for 4 seconds. That means it will complete it by 37 seconds, right? This will be the Gantt chart for the this scenario when you are having arrival time component with you, right? But in this case, see the difference. This is the different Gantt chart, and this is the different Gantt chart. Why it is different? Because we are having now arrival time component also, which we need to consider also, right? Now calculate the time. Now we calculate the time, waiting time and turnaround time. Waiting time p1, waiting time for p1. Waiting time for p1 will be, first check Gantt chart when it gets CPU. It gets CPU at time t2, right? That means it got CPU at time 2, right? But when it came to the system, it came to the system at 1 second, right? First second. That means 2 minus 1 will be the total waiting time for p1. So it is 1 second, right? Second, p2. For p2, you can check the Gantt chart. It got the CPU at 0 second and came at 0. That means 0 minus 0 equals to 0 second. Its waiting time will be 0 second. And for p3 got the CPU at 33 second. 33 minus arrival time when it came to the system at 2 seconds, minus 2, right? So it is 30. So average WT will be 1 plus 0 plus 30 upon 3, means 31 by 3, means 10.33 second will be the average waiting time for the system. Now calculate turnaround time for P1. Turnaround time for P1, when it completed by 33 seconds, and when it got the CPU, when it came to the CPU, at 1 second. Okay, so 33 minus 1 is the total turnaround time for P1. 32 seconds. Next P2. P2 has been completed by second and it came into the system at time t0. That means total completion time of the P2 will be 2. And P3. For P3 completed its task at 37 seconds, and when it came to the system, at time 2. So 37 minus 2 equals to 35. So average turnaround time for the whole system will be 32 plus 2 plus 35 by 3. Right? Okay. Next, 34, 68, 69. 69 upon 3 means 23 seconds will be the turnaround time for this snapshot, right? This snapshot of the system, right? So in both cases, in first cases, we are not having arrival time with us, so we assume that all the system came into the system at the same time, but according to their numbering, we are providing CPU to that system, individual processes, right? But in second example, we are given with arrival time also, so we need to consider it in the calculation when we are calculating average time, average waiting time, and average turnaround time. So understood my point? You need to first, for any snapshot given in the question, you need to first create Gantt chart properly, because if it is proper, your calculation will be proper. If it is not proper, that means your calculation will be wrong and your answers will be wrong, right? So this is our first scheduling algorithm, which is non-preemptive in case. Means if you have given given CPU to any process, you cannot change it, you cannot change in between. You need that process need to first complete it. After that only, once the completion of that particular process, after that only you will give control of CPU to another process. That means this algorithm is non-preemptive in nature. So this is the FCFS, first come first serve algorithm, scheduling algorithm. We understood by the example, right? And in both we in the example we just understood how to solve if you are not having arrival time, and if they have given you arrival time component also, then you need to consider it, and you will see the changes in the Gantt chart also. See here, according to this same question is there, but due to the arrival time factor, the Gantt chart has been changed. You can see the difference in both Gantt chart, and according to Gantt chart changes, the answers for the same question will be changed. So total, so you could understand that if a lengthy process come first, that means short process will wait for long time. That means they may or may not get CPU at the at early stage. That means they are going to the condition starvation condition. They will be indulged in a starvation condition. But if for best cases, if all the processes, short processes come first and long process comes after short process, that means this FCFS will give you best performance in that case, right? So this is all for today. I think you got the point and you understood this FCFS. This is the most common algorithm in the computer science, and in the scheduling also it is used most commonly, right? Okay guys, that's it for today.